wanted to talk briefly about the Women's World Cup with some thoughts about the USA's performance, as I also think there are some prevalent topics that coincide with what's going on today as well. So first of all, the group stage. I do feel like this can be one of the most important parts of tournaments and can really set the stage for the competition as a whole. And moving forward, it can also set the tone for how teams can look as the tournament plays out. I do also think it can be important to have a strong or firm foundation with any kind of undertaking. Usually it seems if early matches or stages are close, it doesn't really end up going well later on. The U.S. team didn't have a particularly dominant display, 1 win, 2 draws. They seemed slightly lackadaisical. It does seem like there could be more games though, as having merely 3 seems like very little for a tournament of such magnitude that only happens once every 4 years. It can take time for a team to get their feet from under them and get warmed up to the tournament. 1 game, maybe even 2 games. By this time the group stage is practically already over. Teams may also not be showing all their best stuff, at these early stages, which I thought the U.S. May have been doing this time around. Knowing that it's only 3 games, though, can be a reason to really play at high intensity, though, knowing that every game is going to matter. In fact, it's also interesting that a tournament of this magnitude doesn't have a 2-leg system where other tournaments do, but I suppose it does add more excitement in these matches, but may not always result in the best team moving forward. In addition, I feel like 4 years does seem a tad on the high end between World Cups and other competitions, and I feel like it could definitely be brought down to maybe 3. It doesn't really give players and teams that many opportunities to win or at least do well in such a massive event, especially in a sport like this where anything can happen. I feel like the USA team always has a tough aura about them. They really fight and battle for possession and carry themselves in a confident manner. I also feel like the women's team has really helped the sport as a whole in the US with their success being able to draw and bring in new audiences to watch. I was pleasantly surprised to still see them at the top of the standings, as I also heard that they were having some problems fairly recently as well. It does seem like the US seems to always end up finding a way to stay at the top, even to stay at the number 1 ranking. Sometimes I do wonder why there may be a little bit of a discrepancy between the men's team and the women's team rankings, but I can see some possible reasons, such as time the sport has been played and the way in which the sport is played. I feel like overall the U.S. team played solidly. Lindsey Horan definitely had a standout performance this time around for the U.S. and really brought a spark to the team as a whole. She may have been the best performing player on this team this World Cup. It was also awesome, to see her score after getting into the scuffle during the Netherlands match, but I was thinking that it shouldn't be completely necessary for a player to get angry to score a goal as the number 1 team in the world. I also thought Alyssa Nair played a fantastic tournament as well, put on a dominant performance in the net for the U.S. squad. I do feel like the team as a whole may have been a bit lax when it came to scoring goals and creating opportunities. It feels like many teams kind of let the match play out for a while to get a feel for the match, or perhaps to wear their opponents down. I don't think the U.S. team, or perhaps any higher-ranked team in a fixture, necessarily has to go this route when playing through their matches, and could probably just go all in and pressure for an early goal, or at least a goal in the first half, to go ahead and get that lead. Afterward, then they can kind of sit back in a way and kind of let the match come to them. In fact, I generally think it can be beneficial to try for a 2-goal lead, even to get more of a cushion. The longer the match goes on at 0-0 or a tie, the more risk there is of a late goal by the opponent and less time to equalize. But I do suppose team style and team strategy can factor into this as well. The aura and feel of the team as a whole, though, also seemed different in past iterations, where it seemed like the team wanted to lay on as many goals as they could and really just dominate their opponents. I definitely didn't feel that way this time around. I do feel like there were more strong teams in the tournament this time around, however, and the women's game seems to continue to get better and better with more fierce and tougher competition. Penalty shootouts are most definitely exciting to watch, and some of these may have been some of the best PKs I've seen, as a majority of them seem to slot right into the corners, even into the top corners. But going for such a high-risk shot did seem to result in quite a few misses as well. It does seem like anything can happen when it comes to penalty shootout, so I feel like the U.S. team shouldn't really have to get to this point in their matches. I feel like the better team, or at least the higher seeded team should probably do all they can to avoid a penalty shootout at all costs. And this way, the result is almost kind of left to chance in penalty shootouts, as opposed to really willing a win to happen. The passing of the guard. I think it's exceedingly important and perhaps even necessary to have some kind of veteran leadership on a team. Having some kind of veteran presence in the locker room. I think this can really benefit the team, and especially the younger players. It can, however, in very specific circumstances, hinder a player from really truly being able to blossom and flourish, and additionally really just be able to be themselves. I feel like there may have been just a little bit of this going on with Team USA. There are many factors that go into this, though, like timing and the team as a whole, and every situation has differences to it. There does seem to be a lot of promising young talent on the team, especially among the forwards. I feel like the team, along with other teams in the league, may be going through a period of transition. And this can be difficult and tricky to navigate. For a lot of the league, it could come down to which team is able to navigate this process the best. I suppose it is one of the many challenges that has to be faced, especially when dealing with sports and athletics. I also felt like the team may have been lacking some sort of X factor, something special or kind of out of the ordinary to really take them over the top. This may not be completely necessary, but can definitely be a factor, and it seems to be present in many championship teams and dynasties. This could be players or just some sort of attribute about the team. I also kind of realized that moments of brilliance can really be a difference maker, whether that be getting past a defender one-on-one, a fantastic shot, a spectacular pass, a terrific team play, or just something a little extra, something that's different from the usual run of play. There should be some discussion about Megan Rapinoe as well, as there's definitely been some talk about her lately, particularly in the political world. She and others involved as well do bring up significant points about timely issues that are rampant in our society today. However, sometimes this can have a negative effect on the team and even team morale. It can sometimes make the overall environment more about a particular player as opposed to it being about the team and the team's success. In addition, it can also pull things away from playing and finding success with the actual sport. It can distract and affect player and team performance. It can also create division within the team, or at least disrupt the team dynamic, affecting team environment. There can also be an element of finding when things are respectable and understandable, and when they start to become a little too much or overbearing. There does seem to be even more political issues that are being brought up as well. There are times when the public just wants to watch a good match and enjoy a good tournament, as opposed to bringing in all these other issues into it. I do think there are times, though, where it can be beneficial to make a stand about something. So when it comes to equal pay, I think this is a prevalent topic to be considered, especially at this moment in time. There does seem to be multiple factors involved with this, though, that could come into effect. For example, when looking at it financially, the total amount of revenue and profits would need to be considered when comparing both the men's and women's events. For example, when looking at the previous World Cups, it would appear the men's made $6 billion in revenue, whereas the women's made $131 million. So there does appear to be some disparity here in terms of overall earnings. Total viewership and attendance at events would also be involved with this area of discussion as well. So in terms of viewership, it looks like the last Men's World Cup drew in 3.572 billion viewers, whereas the Women's World Cup drew in 1.12 billion. So definitely much closer here, but still with a disparity. However, there does seem to be continued growth on the women's side, with viewership expected to be at a number over 2 billion at the 2023 World Cup. So looking at all these numbers overall, the question may have to be if other factors like team success or like ratings would overcome the financial aspect of the conversation and justify even more pay increase, because it does look like there already is some pay increases happening, with the prize pool increasing from $30 million in 2019, which admittedly does seem a tad low, to $110 million in 2023. In comparison, the men's side had $440 million for their prize pool in their last World Cup, a number that's still higher, but much closer than it was previously. So some acknowledgement can be had that there, at least at this moment, does seem to be serious discussion about this issue occurring, and even some pay increases happening in parallel with the women's game itself continuing to grow as well. I feel like the U.S. team may have been lacking a little bit in terms of motivation and perhaps seemed a bit uninspired overall in this tournament. I do think that many factors can go into this, and many people in the teams interact with this in different ways. For example, if the crowd isn't completely on their side, for whatever reason this may be, this can negatively affect how a team or players play. Although this doesn't necessarily affect everybody in this way, it can also be the coach and coaching, or at least how a coach fits with the team overall. It can also definitely be team environment, how the team and each of the players interact with each other, both on and off the field. It can also be challenging to maintain motivation to win, especially with this U.S. team that has won so much already. 2 straight World Cups, as an example, and this might hinder inspiration as well. At times, it does seem like there can be more motivation on a team that hasn't won before or recently and are trying to overcome an obstacle or achieve a new goal, as opposed to a team that has already won and is just trying to maintain their form, their lead, or their winning ways. I feel like all of these factors may have definitely been involved with the U.S. team this time around. It seems like motivation can really be at the forefront of teams and people as well, being able to overcome and really achieve some amazing things and feats. A question could come into effect as to how much does motivation factor into success overall? Is it needed to succeed, and if so, how much of it? There definitely seems to be instances where those that are ranked lower or perceived to be lesser overcome powerful opponents because of there being more motivation and inspiration on their side. If one were to look at the U.S. team's track record, however, the last time they lost a World Cup, shortly afterward they may have had one of their best periods in their history, going off for 2 straight World Cup victories. If this was anything to go by, I'd say this U.S. team definitely has a bright future ahead of them, and with any storm or a low point, there is usually some light awaiting afterward.